Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the From Hurt to Hope podcast. I am so excited that you are here. So, today I am kind of just bringing you this message that is on my heart. It's going to be a hard one to share. I'm going to have to think about my words really carefully. I had to pray about this before I even started because this is a situation that's still evolving and I'm still working through it. And this person's still in my life. And I just want to be courteous of that. And I need to just come into this episode with just transparency, but also I can't give a ton of details. So I'm going to do my best that I can to explain this to you. So I'm just hanging out this morning. I tried to hide in the quietest place in my house away from my sleeping family upstairs. So yeah, I am just putting this together for you guys because it is a message on my heart today. So today I want to talk to you guys about oh, hate. I don't know what else to call it. Doubters, naysayers, just joy thieves, buzzkills. I don't know. I don't know what else to call it right this minute. Doubters probably would be the biggest thing that comes to mind. And like I said, I'm going to be pretty vulnerable here and talk about something that has held me back for a really long time. And I don't know if this is going to be relatable to a lot of people, but that's okay. I just feel like if it's meant for someone, it's meant for someone. I want to talk to you guys about something that has held me back for many years, something that I have almost had to do a decade's worth of work to get through, something that I have educated myself on so much, and something that I unfortunately am starting to see a little bit in like my life again. So, with that all being said, you guys, here is just this journey that I've been on, this journey of just trying to root myself in truth and also just healing. Healing is probably one of the biggest words. I was raised by parents that were very supportive, very, very supportive. I mean, not perfect, but supportive, very good parents. And they had structure, they had discipline, they took care of us girls. They were honest with us. They believed in us. They were a little tough at times. I mean, they had standards. They had things that we were allowed to do and things we weren't allowed to do. And we knew where those lines were. But most of all, I am very, very lucky that I was raised by a mom and a dad that love, that encourage. And to this day, they are still that exact same way. They were always very honest with me and my sisters. They would tell us, just the honest truth. Even if it was the tough truth, they would check us, they put us in our place. Like they were supportive though, above all else. They didn't do this in like a crushing manner. They never tried to belittle us. I think, especially thinking about how my dad raised me, as a dad of all girls, he raised us to have some confidence, to never let somebody like determine our success, that if we put our mind to something, we can accomplish things. I see that trait in me even to this day. Like I look at some of the things that I do and I'm like, wow, like, I don't know if a lot of women do this stuff, but I'll just get it done. And there's nothing that's going to stop me. I'm going to set out. I'm going to be very determined, and I'm going to go forward because I think it's because a lot of the confidence that my parents and especially my dad really instilled in us. With all of that being said, that was my childhood. It was pretty good. I mean, there obviously, you guys have shared it here before. There were some bumps, there were some, issues like here and there, but coming from the aspect of how my parents were raising me and helping me develop into who I was and helping me come into my own and my confidence and things like that, I came from very, very, very supportive parents. So this is where things kind of changed is when I got older and it wasn't just my parents that I was around anymore. And I went through the season where I took complete control of my life again. I got back in shape. I started like deciding who I wanted to be, like what I wanted to be known for in school. I had jobs. I was determined. I was happy. I was confident. I had friends. I just was living in like my best life as a 16-year-old girl. And I know that's not always the case for a lot of people, but I was living true to who I was. I mean, I was developing into who I wanted to be. I was learning things. I was goal oriented, a lot of things like that. At this very same time though, I got a job, so I was like around people that, weren't part of my immediate family. Of course, there was the people, the teachers and other students that I went to high school with and things like that. But it was when I started going into other people's homes that I realized like, wow, my house was different. My home with my mom and dad, I mean, the talk that they had with us and like the honesty and the encouragement and things like that, it wasn't like this for everybody. I'm talking about friends that I would go visit at their houses, like their parents did not encourage them the way that my parents did. I noticed this like just from conversations with different people that like this is not everybody's situation. Well, I happened to find myself in in a relationship, and I was in a relationship with somebody that their parents were just not these life breathers. They did not have encouragement. So I noticed in this relationship that the person would want to come over to my house more and more and more. And it was because I think my parents were encouraging. They believed in him. They built him up, they talked to him, they were truthful, they were real, they accepted him for who he was, and it was probably the first time that they had ever experienced that in their life. With that being said, this person was raised in a situation where there was a lot of like, you can't do this talk. You won't be able to achieve this. And for the first time, they were able to see like, wow, maybe I do have a fuller potential. Maybe I will be able to accomplish what I set out for. Maybe I was made for a purpose. Well, with all of that being said, I was learning that not all people were as encouraging as my parents at this time. And I was thankful for the parents that I had. But I still had this like thought in my mind that I needed to respect all adults. I think it's because my parents did a really good job in like having us honor and respect them. We were never ones to back talk to them, especially like authority figures. Like we've always had respect. When I say we, I mean my sisters, we've always had respect for our elders. We never like swore in front of our parents. We never name called our parents. Like we had respect. I mean, all the way down to our teachers and administrators in school. And like we respected our employers, like as young girls going to high school jobs, like all of this stuff, our parents really did teach us respect. So for me, this shaped me into thinking like I need to give respect to every single adult in my life. Like I was just looking at it like, okay, they're older than me, like they're my elder, like they're an adult figure. Who am I? I'm just a young girl. I need to respect them. And that's where I feel like I let something that a situation that happened just take root and took the person's words for truth. And I thought, okay, this is it. So here was the scenario. I ended up I was in this relationship and I was over at the guy's house, and a situation arose where my character was brought up in a pretty I guess what would I say, a pretty big altercation. I was just a 16-year-old girl, and I was just doing my best, caring for people, living my best life, like trying to do right by people and going to school, having a job, like just all of these things. And I had just gotten into the season of like feeling who I was, feeling like I was really starting to live true to who God made me to be. And there was this altercation. A seed was planted by the words that somebody had said, and they stuck with me for a really long time. So, in the altercation, I was pretty much the target of an attack. And it was just a verbal altercation where my character was under fire. I was told that I was a terrible person, that I was ruining somebody's life, that I was no good, pretty much. My family was ruining this person's life as well. And just, I stood there. This was probably the first time in my life that I had ever been in conflict like this. I know there's a lot of people out there who will say they don't like conflict. I am definitely one of those people. I'm not out looking to get into a fight with somebody. I don't like, I mean, I honestly will stand up for myself now, but at that time as a 16-year-old girl, this is the first time anything like this had ever happened. And I'm there and I'm hearing these things being said about me. And I'm thinking, wow, like this is coming from an adult. This is coming from an adult and this hurts. Like I could not even speak in like defense for myself. For one, I was in their home when these things were being said, when I was just completely being annihilated by their words. I was in their home and I had the respect of like knowing I'm in somebody else's home and I'm not going to say anything back. I just took it. I took it because I didn't have a voice and I didn't know really that I, in that situation, probably should have stood up for myself, that what they were saying wasn't okay. And then I just needed to get out and leave the situation. And that's what I did. I just walked away. They had just pretty much torn me apart with all of their words. And I walked out and I just remember getting in my car and swearing that I would never go back in there. I probably did what I should have done. I know I probably shouldn't have gotten back and started yelling and like name calling and did things like that. So I'm glad I didn't in that moment. I'm really glad I didn't. When I walked away from that situation and all their words were replaying in my mind, because this person was older than me, because this person was the parent of somebody, I took it into the play of I need to respect my elders. And I thought, wow, like, because they're older than me, must be smarter than me, like all these things, what they're saying must be the truth. And this is one of the things looking back on it is that I put them almost on the same level as my parents. My parents raised me up and they said, you're smart, you can do great things, you are made for so much. And my parents raised me up as a young girl and instilled all these things in me. But then this person that for some reason in my mind, I thought, okay, they're older than me. I need to respect them. Like they're like, just all these things like authority, like I respect, just don't talk back, all these things. I put them almost on the same level as my parents. And I thought, whoa, okay, like this person's saying I'm a terrible person. This person's saying I'm never going to amount to anything. This person's saying I'm going to ruin somebody's life. Like this is what they're saying, and it instantly just washed away all of the things that my parents like build up in me my entire life. Looking back on it now, I mean, there's so many emotions, and like I said, this is years and years ago, you guys. But looking back on it, I know what I did right and I know what I did wrong. I was right by leaving, getting myself out of the scenario, getting myself out, but I was wrong by putting this person on the same level as my parents. And what happened after that was that their words started to eat me alive. Their words took root. Their words that they said that day played in my mind daily. That altercation of me feeling so belittled, so scared, so voiceless, like so destroyed, like just so beat down in that moment because of the words during that altercation stuck with me. And I get frustrated now looking back and knowing that like that weighed me down for so many years, but that's not the end of the story. But it did. You guys, I would lay in bed and just their words would play over and over. And I think I'm a terrible person. Like I'm ruining somebody's life. I'm no good. I'm never going to amount to anything. And I still have my parents daily, like, encouraging me and supporting me and things like that. But I never told them about this until years and years later. I never told my parents about this. And I don't know why exactly that was. I was afraid that because these words hurt me so much and they had said these words about me, and my family. I didn't want to tell my parents because I didn't want it to hurt them the way it hurt me. So I was almost trying to protect them. So it was just this scenario of something that I went through, and it it unfortunately defined several years of my life. So initially, like I said, I had confidence in this season. I was really feeling who I was. I was really stepping into my own. And that day just crushed me. It started to take away any life that I was building and any hope and any confidence that I was building up inside myself. And it started the reverse effect. It made me feel like probably the littlest person in the world. And I realized now looking back that it was that day that triggered like my downward, backward spiral. So I like came out of a relationship early high school and that crushed me. And then my weight was an issue. But then like I was like, I'm taking control of my life and I'm doing this. And like I built my life back up. I lost weight and I had a job and I was doing well in school. And like I was really starting to live at my best, like fullest life. And then I was crushed by those words. And then it was just a downward spiral from there. I started gaining weight, quite a bit of weight in high school. I started just doubting my future and thinking, okay, well, all those dreams and goals that I thought I wanted to work towards, I'm never going to be good enough and I'm never going to make it there anyways. And the self doubt crept in probably for the first time in my life. And I doubted that I was not smart enough. I doubted that I wasn't a good enough person. I doubted everything about myself. I questioned everything because this person made me aware that there's other opinions out there in the world. And I thought, well, my parents raised me up and they said this, but maybe they lied to me. Maybe what they said wasn't the truth and what this person is saying is the truth. And then I really did. I started believing that it was the truth. So I really started settling. I really started conforming. I really started thinking like, okay, maybe my dreams are too big. Maybe I am too much of a person. Maybe I need to settle down. Maybe I need to realize that like, you know, I don't know everything. Like all these thoughts and scenarios would go through my mind. And I went through my early adult life with these thoughts in my mind. I think I completely lost myself because I had these mixed messages. I had my parents building me up, and I had somebody else that was just tearing me down and making me question who I was. And I was confused. I wasn't rooted in anything anymore. I didn't know didn't know what words to believe about myself and what words not to. And then, of course, because these words were replaying at the end of the day, they were replaying in my mind over and over. It was something that I really did. I really did start to believe that I was never going to be anything, that I was never going to accomplish anything, that I was a terrible person, that I brought people down instead of like bringing them up, that I was destroying people instead of helping them be their best selves. And I think this is why in my early 20s, I fell into one of the hardest seasons of, not having any confidence, absolutely no confidence, not knowing my worth at all, spinning out of control with my emotions and turning to food and gaining a ton of weight and getting jobs that were very, very, very like quote unquote, like normal and secure and just all those things. I think that's exactly why I went in that direction, was because these words put me in a box. They put me in chains. I was locked in, and I wouldn't realize until just a few years ago that this is a cycle. This person said these words that day, and they stuck with me. They stuck with me. But there were some times where I would start building my confidence again. I'd start feeling good. I would start, doing something. I would start believing in myself again. And then the next thing you know, it would come up again. It would come up again. My character would be questioned. I would start being really, really determined, and I would start stepping forward, and then the comments would come back in, and they would be like, "You're never gonna do this. You're gonna fail. You're gonna gain all your weight back. You're a bad mom because you work. Like, just you're a bad mom because you travel, and you're never gonna succeed, and it's all gonna go away." And so I started building myself back up again. But as soon as I started gaining some traction, the comments started coming in again and the words, and they just started chipping away at me and destroying me again. And here's the thing. Here's the thing. I'm trying to articulate this. I mean, I can't give a ton of details, but I'm trying to articulate this the best that I can. The things that were being said were hitting the things that were so core to who I was. When it was said that like I was a bad mom for working and traveling, that hurt because I want nothing more than to be the best mom that I can possibly be for these children that I love so much. That hurt me to the core. When it was said that I was destroying somebody's life, and here I am, somebody who wants to encourage and love and support and build people up. And when it is said that I was destroying somebody, that hurt me. So somehow this was like my kryptonite. This was it. This was like the knife in my side. The words that were being said about me weren't just words that I could be like, "Oh yeah, that's nothing." No, these were words that like I directly was impacted by because they hit so deep in my life. Something that I loved and cared about so much. You're telling me I'm a bad mom. Of course, I'm going to check what I'm doing and make sure that like I'm not. And then the doubt steps in. I'm like, oh, maybe I am a terrible mom. And like, maybe I am, like, or the worst person to be around. And it just this cycle of it. But it hit me so deep. And after seeing this cycle a couple times in my life, like I said, as a 16-year-old girl, I was finally just, figuring out who I was, building up like who I was, like believing in myself and, knowing that I was made for something, and then crush. And then again in my early 20s, I was finally like, I was a mom and I was like living my best life and I was stepping into a job that I loved and I was living my best life, making good money and like taking care of my body and just all of these things. And then crush. So I realized the cycle that was going on, that every time I start gaining some traction and getting back to the truth of who God says I am and getting back to like the confidence that I can have in God and how he created me and just the boldness and the self-esteem, stones start to be thrown again. They start to be thrown again every time that I pick up traction. And I think for the very first time in this recent season in life, that this is the first time that I am aware that it happens. And I'm really putting up some perimeters, some boundaries to protect myself now that I'm going into this next season of growth, this next season of confidence, this next season of what God has called me to do. I'm putting up some parameters because I know that the stones are starting to be thrown, and I know that this is the enemy's cycle, and I can't let it take me back to where I had was for all the years. Now, like I said, it's taken me years to even realize this. It's taken counseling and sitting down with somebody and going all the way back. And I've been able to determine that a lot of this like self-confidence and self-doubt, it started that day that altercation happened when I was 16 years old, standing in that living room. And my character was just destroyed. And I believed what they said. And it planted a seed inside of me, and I nourished that seed. I thought about that. I thought about the comments they made every single night. I gave that thing so much energy, and it just grew and grew and grew into just such a negative self-doubt and such a low self-esteem. And it was working with a counselor that I realized, like stepping back, like I could pinpoint the day that seed was planted. And I mean, this isn't something I'm talking about it a lot right now, but this is something that I have buried in my memory. It was something I almost forgot about completely. But it wasn't until I actually sat down with somebody and they started asking questions, and I was like, oh, that was it. That scenario, that day, that situation, that was when this happened. And then with the help of a counselor, they helped me work and see the cycle that has been happening since I was 16 years old, that every time I start rising up and pull back down, every time I start gaining some traction, the stones are thrown and it hurts my heart. And then I stop my progress because I feel like I'm doing something wrong, even though I'm doing something right. It's just, they helped me, and it took years. And through therapy, through counseling, I was able to start digging up those negative thoughts. I was able to start like digging out the words that were rooted that I let take root. I was able to start digging those up and replanting it with the truth of who God says I am. And this is where I want to tie everything together. So, I had my parents as a young girl encourage and love and nourish me and plant seeds of like confidence and believing in myself and that I was loved and that I was smart. They planted all of that inside of me. And I was like going through life. I was going through life and I was like, yeah, that's who I am. That's who I am. I'm loved. I mean, there's obviously situations and life is tough, but like I was able to fall back on what my parents said. Then at 16, somebody else came into my life and then they said the complete opposite of that. They said I was a terrible person. They said I was a bad influence. They said I was ruining somebody's life. They said I'd never get anywhere. Their seeds came alongside my parents, words of encouragement that were planted inside of me. And because I dwelled on their words so much more, it took a deeper root. I believed it. And because that happened, that's who I thought I was. And this is partly my fault because I didn't believe what my parents had said anymore. I thought, oh, they're just my parents. They were just too nice to me. They just said what I wanted to hear. They just said this because they're my mom and dad and they love me. But the world doesn't think this. So my parents are wrong. And what this other person said was right. So when that happened, and I realized that, like, wow, that person that day, with the help of me just giving this way too much energy and taking it very, very, very personally, I realized that day that they were able to wipe out all of the work that my parents did, all of the encouragement that my parents placed in me, all the self-esteem that my parents built up in me. They were able to wipe that out in a 20-minute altercation. Years worth of stuff my parents built me up on, they were able to wipe out. And with the help of a counselor and a lot of time, a lot of emotions, a lot of work, I was able to realize that, like, I just had to build myself up on something really, really strong, really, really solid. And that's when I really started having to build myself up on the word of God, because I had put this person on the same level as my parents and thought, okay, they're an adult, they're right around the same age, like they, like they're here, they're the same level as my parents. For whatever reason, I did that. And I had to build myself up and root myself on something even bigger. And so when God says something, that's it. That tops it all. That tops it all. And now I know that if God says I'm something, that's the end all. That's the be all. That's all I need to know. So now I have really rooted myself in the truth of who God says I am. I am not perfect. I am not the smartest person, but God says that I am loved. God says that I was made in his image. God says that he has plans for my life. God says that I can do all things with him by my side, with him who gives me strength. With God, all things are possible. And those are the things that I've had to reroute in my life. Those are the things, like, I had to start over. I had to crush everything down and wipe the soil clean. And I had to start over and start planting those seeds of who God says I am. Because now when the stones start get thrown, like when the words start getting thrown around and the hate starts coming in, instead of saying, oh, well, this person's on the same level and like, oh my gosh, like their words are like, no, that's not the truth, because their words are not anywhere equivalent to what God says about me. Nowhere even close to the level of what my Heavenly Father says. And I can say, okay, but is that what God says about me? Is that who God said I am? Is that what God, like, if as long as I'm like living according to what God would want, and I'm like trying to like be a child of God, and I'm trying to just to live for God and to be who He says to be, I can have something really, really firm to just kind of do a quick check. They said they said I'm not very smart. Oh, wait, hold on. No, God's with me, so I can do all things. Like they said that I'm a bad person. Nope, because I know I can sit down now and look at it and say, like, you know what? I don't want people to feel bad about themselves. I'm trying to raise people up. So that's a lie. I can identify the lie so much more now, so much quicker, because I'm rooted in God and who God says. And I have been able to anchor myself in something so much higher than what any human being is going to say. Any person here, whatever they're going to say, it will still hurt, but I have to remember the truth of who God says I am. After all these years of work and all of these years of struggle and ups and downs, I am now starting to see this in my own children's life. Comments will be made at school by different kids. They'll be picked on or made fun of for something. And they'll come home and they'll say, so-and-so said that I'm not smart enough. And, this person said that my clothes were ugly. And this person said that I'm no fun to play with. And they want to play with somebody else because they're cooler than me. And, they're making fun of me for this or that. And I see this and I know how bad that hurts. But I also know that I need to root my kids on the truth of what God says about them, and not just what I believe about them, not just what their dad believes about them, but what their Heavenly Father says about them. Because if I just say, honey, you are so smart, you are so loved, like you are great, like don't let their words hurt you, like that's not true, that's a lie. Like if I just say that, it's the same thing my parents did for me. And I know that could just be washed away one day. So now what I'm trying to do is I am trying to root them in the truth of God from a very, very young age. I'm going to tell them that they are loved. They are brave. They are, a child of God. They can do things with God by their side, that they were created for a reason. I'm really trying to root that in them at this young age. So one of the things that we recently started doing in our house was just posting these truths all around, and just having these reminders of who God says we are, not who somebody in the world says we are, not who the enemy wants us to believe we are deep down inside, just rooting in truth and knowing that the words hurt so bad, but as long as we don't put them on the same level as what God says, that's all that matters. Because I know that all the work and all the encouragement and all the love and all the nourishment that I give my kids all these years can be taken away by one other person here on this world. I know it can be taken away. But what I'm really hoping for is that I root them so deeply in the truth of who God says they are, that when the stones are thrown, maybe instead of cracking and chipping and destroying who they are, they'll hurt a little bit when they hit, but they'll be able to bounce off and just say, nope, that's not who God says I am. This message, I know, because I'm trying to be very, very, very selective of the words I'm using, and trying not to identify people and things like that. It's just been a difficult one to share, but I hope that it has helped somebody realize that if you are dealing with a bully, if you do have a very toxic person in your life, you might be giving them more power. You might have taken one thing that they said and just drilled it into your identity and like rooted it so deep into who you are that it has held you back for years, because that's exactly what happened with me. And if that's the case, it's probably going to take some work to uproot that. And it's also going to take the work of planting the new truth and building yourself up on solid foundation and learning what really God says. Because nothing is superior to what God says. God's truth is the end all, be all. And just learning what he says, learning who he says you are, learning and believing how much he loves you. That's going to be the most important thing. The hate hurts. The words hurt because, like I said, the enemy knows where it's going to cut you the deepest. What character traits and what things mean the most to you? What words can the enemy use to cut you the absolute deepest? If you struggle with appearance, confidence, and you don't think you're a very pretty person, of course, the words that are going to be thrown at you are that you're ugly, that you're fat, like things like that. If you struggle with if you want to be like the absolute best mom, of course the words that are going to be thrown at you is that you're a terrible mom, that you're destroying your kids' life. Those are the things that are going to be, thrown at you. If you absolutely believe that, the dream inside your heart is worth something, the doubt's going to be, no, you are crazy. You can't do that. You're never going to accomplish anything. You're going to fail. It's going to be the exact opposite of what God has planted inside of you. That's what the enemy's going to do. And it's usually going to be the things that cut you and hurt you the deepest. So really working on this, because now that I really see it starting to come about in my kids' life, I'm like, what can I do differently? My parents did a phenomenal job of raising me and building me up to believe in myself. But because of just this thing in my mind, thinking that I needed to respect all adults and all authority and all people, I put them on the same level as my parents. And I'm trying to just root my kids in knowing that they need to respect people, but not all adults, even if they are older than you, not all of them have a good heart. Not all of them speak words of truth. Not all of them want you to succeed. Not all people want good for you, unfortunately. And I think that's something that I really do want to work on with my kids, even at this time. So as I close this out, I know that the words hurt. I know that the comments that are made that question your character and who you are hurt. But I want to remind you guys that in the word, Jesus said himself, if he was hated in this world, we would be hated too. The world did not even love Jesus. So what makes us even think that we're not going to experience hate? Because if they couldn't even love Jesus, they're definitely not going to love us. And the thing is that Jesus, he knows how bad it hurts. He had haters, you guys. Jesus had haters so bad that they hung him to a cross. And that right there just reminds me that you might be under attack because you're doing something right. You only get splinters when you go against the grain. And if Jesus Christ was hated and he is who he is, I'll take the hate too, because I don't want to be exactly like the world. It hurts, but you have to root yourself in that truth of who God says you are. I hope that this message has helped you. This is a conversation that's going to evolve. It's going to evolve. I hope for my very first time just sharing this with you guys that it helped you some, that I maybe gave you something else, another perspective to think about. Please tell me all my years of therapy paid off, that I've been able to explain this, that this is not the end of the conversation. This is definitely not the end of the conversation here. And the bullies are still out there. And we just have to root ourselves in the truth of who God says we are. So I encourage you to start writing down your truth, to start maybe writing down who God says you are. If you need to, stick up reminders in your house and read those often and read those daily, and keep reminding your guys' self who God says you are. All right, guys, until next time, take care.